Have you ever noticed how the moment you start changing for real, the world around you begins to shift? Not in applause, not in support, but in silence. In the subtle tension that tells you your growth has made you dangerous. Dangerous to their comfort. Dangerous to the rules they've lived by. Dangerous to the version of you they still expect to see. And if you've ever felt that strange distance growing between you and the people you once called your own, you're not broken. You're becoming something they can't control. This is not motivation. This is a warning. If you stay, what you hear next will change the way you see yourself forever.
There's a subtle tension that arises when you truly begin to change. People may not say it outright, but you'll feel it, hidden in jokes, disguised as advice, or buried in an awkward silence. Your growth shines a light on what they've been avoiding, and no one likes to be reminded of their own complacency. A strong mind disrupts the emotional ecosystem around it. It forces others to confront the parts of themselves they keep hidden, and that confrontation is rarely welcome. This is why personal transformation often feels like a lonely rebellion. The truth is, your mental evolution isn't just about you. It's a ripple that disturbs stagnant waters. And while you might think the world should celebrate your progress, in reality, they often wish you would stay the same. In those moments, you must decide. Will you shrink back into their comfort, or will you keep walking into the unknown? Real change demands payment, and the currency is comfort. You will lose people, you will lose familiar spaces, and you will lose the illusion that you belong everywhere. This is not punishment, it's nature's filter. Not everyone is meant to stand at the edge of transformation. The path narrows, the air thins, and those unwilling to face themselves quietly turn back. Your job is not to drag them forward. Your job is to keep moving, even when the road ahead looks like a wasteland. Because on the other side of that wasteland, something unshakable waits. A version of you they will no longer recognize, but one you will finally call your own. A strong mind is not loud, but it is impossible to ignore. It doesn't bend to social approval, it doesn't seek validation, and it refuses to wear the masks everyone else hides behind. That kind of presence unsettles people. It exposes without accusation, it reveals without words. Simply by existing, you remind them of what they could be, but are too afraid to pursue. Fear makes people defensive. They will label you as arrogant, distant, or strange, not because you are wrong, but because your strength makes their weakness harder to ignore. Understand this, intimidation is often the byproduct of authenticity. If they fear you, it's because they see in you something they abandoned long ago. Thinking for yourself sounds romantic until you realize it requires the demolition of every burrowed belief you've been carrying. You will no longer accept truths handed down by authority. You will test them, dismantle them, and sometimes burn them entirely. This will not make you popular. Independence of thought is dangerous because it refuses to bow to the collective. It breaks the unspoken contract that keeps everyone comfortable, and for that, you will be seen as a threat. But there is no alternative. The moment you taste the freedom of your own mind, obedience becomes impossible.
The most painful betrayal you'll commit is against your former self. You will abandon habits, identities, and even dreams you once clung to. This is not an act of cruelty, it's survival. You cannot carry yesterday's version of yourself into the future you're building. This process feels like death because, in a way, it is. You bury an entire way of being so that something stronger can take its place. And when you finally stand in that new skin, you will realize you didn't lose yourself. You just stopped pretending to be someone you never truly were. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid chaos, believing stability is the highest form of success. Nietzsche saw it differently. He believed that chaos was not the enemy, it was the raw material from which greatness is forged. To face the abyss without flinching requires a courage that feels almost unnatural. It's not about finding light immediately, but about being willing to sit in the darkness until your eyes adjust. Chaos tests every fiber of your being. It strips away false confidence, destroys illusions, and demands that you rebuild from the inside out. The weak avoid it. The strong walk straight into it, knowing that without chaos, there is no transformation.
When Nietzsche declared, "God is dead," he was not celebrating victory. He was issuing a warning. He wasn't killing divinity itself, but the comforting illusion that there is a higher authority taking responsibility for our lives. Without that illusion, there is no ready-made purpose, no ultimate plan, no external savior. The death of God is the death of excuses. It's the moment you are forced to realize that your life is entirely in your hands. And for many, that realization is terrifying, not because it isn't true, but because it leaves them no one else to blame. Freedom sounds like a gift, but true freedom is heavy. It strips away the safety nets you didn't even know you were leaning on. There are no commandments to follow, no external guide to tell you which way to turn. You are the creator, the architect, and the judge of your own existence. This is why so many collapse under the weight of autonomy. It demands relentless self-honesty and a willingness to take full responsibility for both your failures and your victories. Radical freedom is not a luxury. It is a burden that only the strong can carry.
An unbreakable mind is not born. It's built, piece by piece, in the shadows where no one is watching. It's the result of enduring pain without running, of facing failure without surrender, of standing alone without collapsing. Every trial becomes a brick. Every betrayal becomes mortar. Every moment you refuse to bend adds another layer of strength. One day, without realizing it, you will look back and see that the storms that once shook you now pass through without leaving a crack. Nietzsche's Übermensch, the Overman, is not a mythical hero, but a human who has overcome everything that chains the ordinary mind. The Übermensch creates their own values, not out of rebellion, but out of necessity. They refuse to live by rules they did not choose. This figure is dangerous, not because they seek destruction, but because their very existence proves that another way of living is possible. Becoming the Übermensch is not about perfection. It's about self-mastery so complete that no one can dictate your worth but you. To live above social conventions is to refuse the invisible chains that dictate how you should think, act, and feel. This isn't about reckless rebellion. It's about choosing authenticity over acceptance. You stop asking, "Is this allowed?" and start asking, "Is this worthy of me?" When you rise above the herd's rules, you'll notice the isolation that comes with it. Few will walk beside you, and fewer still will understand you. But in that isolation, you'll find something priceless: the freedom to exist without permission. Becoming unshakable is not just about gaining, it's about losing. You'll have to give up the comfort of being understood, the security of fitting in, and the ease of following a ready-made path. The sacrifice is brutal because it forces you to stand in the uncertainty of your own making. No guarantees, no applause, just the relentless demand to keep going. Most turn back here, but those who endured this stage become something rare, something the world cannot break.
True freedom is not found in the noise of the crowd, but in the silence of your own thoughts. Isolation strips away the voices of others until all that's left is your own, raw, unfiltered, and undeniable. It is in this space that you begin to see what you truly believe, not what you've been taught to believe. Freedom is not given, it is forged, and the forge is always a lonely place. The stronger you become, the fewer people can walk your path. It's not because you push them away. It's because they can no longer understand the terrain you're navigating. This solitude is not punishment. It's proof that you've stepped outside the herd. But it's also the test that breaks many. If you can stand in that silence without running back to the crowd, you'll discover the deepest form of strength: complete possession of yourself.
The greatest threat to mediocrity is a single individual who refuses to conform. Society will tolerate weakness, but it cannot stomach strength that refuses to bow. It will disguise its attacks as moral concern, politeness, or tradition, but make no mistake, its goal is to pull you back into the mold. This is not because the herd wants to save you. It's because your existence forces them to confront their own surrender. And so they will circle you, not with open war, but with 1,000 small cuts meant to make you lower your head. Strength isn't always forged in conflict. Sometimes it's built in the quiet moments when no one is watching. It's in the silence after you've walked away from the crowd, in the nights where the only voice you hear is your own. That silence can feel like emptiness at first, but it's actually the space where your true self begins to breathe. In those moments, something starts to awaken, not the fragile confidence given by others, but the kind that rises from within, demanding no permission. If you can endure that quiet long enough, the fire inside you will grow, not to warm the world, but to burn away everything that no longer belongs.
When you become stronger, you don't just see the world differently. You make the world see itself differently. Your presence becomes a mirror, reflecting the cowardice, the surrender, and the compromises that others would rather ignore. Most people can't stand that reflection. They will avoid you, resent you, or try to break you, not because you've harmed them, but because you've shown them a truth they can't bear. Understand this. If your existence forces someone to confront what they've been running from, you've already disturbed the order they depend on, and that disturbance is the beginning of change. When those who cannot rise to greatness control the rules, they redefine strength as arrogance, ambition as selfishness, and independence as coldness. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a value system built not to uplift, but to restrain. Its goal is not justice, it is equality through limitation, ensuring no one rises high enough to cast a shadow over the rest. If you choose to reject this morality, you will be branded dangerous, not because you are wrong, but because you are free. The most effective form of control doesn't come from tyrants.
It comes from the crowd. Free thought threatens the stability of the herd, and so it is met not with debate, but with subtle suffocation, ridicule, exclusion, and relentless pressure to conform. They will not chain your body, they will chain your mind with shame and consensus. If you wish to remain free, you must learn to recognize this silent war and refuse to surrender. Strength demands sacrifice. You will lose shallow friendships, false opportunities, and the ability to be satisfied with a life of smallness. But you will also lose the illusion that you are powerless, and that loss is liberation. The cost is high because the transformation is permanent. Once you see the world through unbreakable eyes, you can never go back to ignorance. This is why few begin the journey, and even fewer finish it. When the dust of struggle settles, what remains is integrity, a rare alignment between who you are and how you live. You will no longer need applause, permission, or validation, because your worth will no longer depend on the eyes of others. This integrity is quiet, but unshakable. It gives you a presence that cannot be bought, and a clarity that cannot be faked. And in a world built on masks, that clarity is the sharpest weapon you will ever wield. Every trial, every loss, every night you stood alone has been leading here, to the moment you declare that you will never bend again. This is not pride. It is a commitment to yourself, forged in the fire of your own becoming. You will live as a creator, not a servant, as a force, not an echo. And your very existence will challenge the world to rise, or to break against you. In that stance, you will find the deepest form of freedom, the certainty that you are truly, irrevocably your own.